Live from OTB Studios, welcome to the Morning Round.
All right. Hey there, Frisbee family. Thanks for tuning in to OTB TV and OTB Podcast Network production of Season 2 of Morning Round with Greggy Biscuits. We got a very special guest joining us today via the power of the internet. It's Juliana Korver. Hi, Juliana.
Good morning.
How's your day going so far?
Well, it's early, so all kinds of potential still in front of me.
You strike me as a little bit of a morning person. Is that an accurate assessment?
I can go both ways on that. I can be very grumpy at times if tired or hungry, but today we're good.
Well, you always have such great energy, and you're always so fun to be around. At least, in my brief experience. So, once again,
excellent.
You're selling it. Tell me a little bit about what you do in the morning here, like kind of getting ready to play versus a tournament versus a practice day. Just kind of take me through what gets you going to get ready to go out there.
I like to start the day with a run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily do that on days that we have tournaments,
right?
But maybe I will this year. Maybe I'll shorten the run. I like to get my blood flowing. I like to feel like I've already done something to benefit myself physically and mentally. And after that, I typically spend a little bit of time stretching, which unfortunately seems to be much more important as I age. It's not as easy as it used to be.
We're in the off season here. It's starting to wind down a little bit. The 2022 season is right around the corner. Are you adding anything to your routine now, or what are you changing to get ready to go on the road?
Oh goodness. Okay. I'm going to give you something here that I haven't really been forthcoming with.
Okay.
I took 2 months off. I did not throw right-handed for 2 months because I broke my right hand.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's big news.
I just got the splint off a couple days ago, and I finally gotten in to see a specialist, and everything is absolutely fine, healing perfectly. It's in line, no trouble. But I didn't know that until a few days ago, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want to say anything.
Oh, wow. So was that like a sort of a specific event, or was that like kind of a stress fracture, or what? I mean, if I don't want to pry too much, but
yeah. It was, yeah, I guess I don't know what adjectives would be used to describe the fracture, but it was a break of my fifth metacarpal.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I had an experience in the California medical system that maybe wasn't what everybody else experienced, but I couldn't see anybody. I couldn't get in to see anybody. I actually flew back to Iowa to go see a hand specialist and take care of some other just generic medical stuff. And so for that whole time that I was in that splint, I really didn't know if it even needed to be set, because I couldn't go in. I couldn't get in to see anybody. So I'm immensely relieved that I have now had professional opinion saying that it looks great, everything's fine. You're ready to go maybe by February 1st, although I did putt yesterday and it felt pretty good.
Okay.
So I'm going to slowly ease back into it. And I waver now on dread and anxiety that I fell behind, and also somewhat calm in that, maybe this was good for you, because I do tend to overdo things, feel like I need to, like I've never done enough. So this forced downtime, maybe
it's hard to rest. So this was kind of like, oh, well, you don't have an option, but you have to.
Right. So part of me can at least argue that was or could be beneficial. So.
Well, that was not really the answer I was expecting when I was just going to tease this off-season prep. So this has really been just an outlier then for your preparation, probably for your whole career, because it was already going to be a long season, really stiff competition all year, and now this added obstacle of overcoming an injury.
On the bright side, my left-handed upshots are not that bad.
Ambidextrous or ambidextrous, as some might say.
Well, Jim and I went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and
that usually helps, right?
I couldn't possibly not play well in Hawaii, so I played left-handed for the first time, and it was actually a joy. The smaller courses were more fun than the bigger courses, but no expectations, and it was kind of fun.
Well, I don't think they could have any excuse not to give you Player of the Year if you win with your non-dominant hand. So, I'm not saying you should do that all season, but if it comes in, you might need a couple shots, just like you've talked about the other skills and the other Frisbee sports help, in your preparation for disc golf. Well,
and that then comes back around because DDC, the disc that you use, is incredibly unstable, and if there's any wind at all, it's almost impossible to control. So most DDC players have a left-handed serve and are able. So if the wind is coming off of your right shoulder, they'll throw it left-handed.
Interesting.
And I did get to the point where I was doing that in DDC, and I think that's why I was able to be able to enjoy myself left-handed on the disc golf course.
So that touches on overall. So again, we know the 5-time, the 11-time, the numbers are out there. Will you have time to do the overall competition this year?
I think if I just wanted to show up and participate, I think I could make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how I do things.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to go, I would need to feel like I were prepared, and if I spend the time preparing for that, then I'm not spending the time working on disc golf. So I really feel like I need to dedicate myself to one, and this year it's disc golf.
So, injury aside, what did you learn last year with the younger competition, being back on tour basically full time once you finally committed back there in the spring to, sort of embrace the tour, partly because of COVID related reasons, but it freed you up to do it. How does this compare to getting ready 20 years ago to start a season?
Well, the obvious differences deal with the size of the field.
Correct.
And I guess, you always say you play against the course, but it's never really true. You're always preparing specifically with your competition in mind for specific events. Like, this is the person who's probably going to be right there. This is the person I need to stay with. So 20 years ago, that was pretty easy. I knew exactly who I needed to work on, or who I needed to work to get ahead of. And now that is not even possible, I guess. And I don't know if it's my maturity or acceptance of where I am with my game right now, or whatever, but I don't do any of that anymore. And I'm really glad that I don't do any more of that, because that's exhausting and stressful. And so now, obviously I want to be the best that I can. And
there's a lot of people to compete against now. There's a lot of really highly skilled players. And yeah,
there are. And I feel like I'm both competing and just kind of a fly on the wall watching what's happening, but I happen to be able to do it right next to everybody else. So it's a very surreal dichotomy for me as I'm out there. And
right, because obviously, like, one of the most major participants ever in the sport's history, and then still here competing on a very high level. You talked about in a couple of other interviews just about that difference now of having the media presence, having the coverage, and that difference of pressure versus the pressure. Obviously there's pressure in every round, whether it's a casual round against your friends up to the world championship. And again, people embrace that or kind of fight against it.
Well, and I think I think people, if you are in the sport long enough, I think that you end up seeing both sides of that. So when I was at my best 20 plus years ago and was overflowing with confidence internally, when I would see people around, I would be talking to them internally, and I would be saying, "Oh, you got to watch this. This is going to be such a great shot. You will not see a better shot than this right now on this hole." You know, and you know, it would just get me so excited. And then I went through a phase where I lost that confidence. And again, this was decades ago. And then when people would show up and be lining the fairways, internally, I was like, "Oh, please turn around, or please don't." You know, it then made things harder for me. And so now I recognize that both of those feelings are possible. And again, I'm kind of just a spectator in my own little journey here. And I try to push both of them out of the way, and just be grateful for being able to be there.
Yeah, you've expressed this sort of, I don't want to call it anxiety, but again, the added pressure from being an introvert. And it is a social sport, and now it's becoming more and more social. Then obviously social media has even expanded, you know, that even the idea of, you know, a professional or a celebrity or where the line is drawn.
I'm
really interesting.
I find it easier for me to just wear that on the sleeve, and you know, I think I can hide it well. But yes, I am, in every psychology test I've taken, I'm off the charts introverted, like not a single E property to my personality. And in this sport, especially now, your success is kind of based on how much you put yourself out there. And, you know, I can do that for a while, but it is exhausting. And I'm so grateful for everybody who's interested in the sport and in me, and I want to give back to them, but it's physically taxing for me. So if the sport had been like this 20 years ago, I really doubt that I would have done as much as I did, because
Interesting.
it was not as easy as it, like it's easy for me now. It's not easy for me now, but it was even harder for me when I was younger.
Wow. And so, you know, as we move, you know, into this next season, you got to play with a bunch more players, a bunch of new backgrounds. Who are you looking forward to play with, and who are you pleasantly surprised by last year?
Almost everybody pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah.
I felt very, very much accepted. You know, I didn't know if people would think I was just a novelty, or, you know, trying to get some attention.
By the wave, yeah.
Whatever. I didn't, you know, but I really felt like I was part of the tour, and that was not possible 20 years ago because there weren't as many people. But I think I touched on this in some other interview. Back in the early 2000s, because there were so few of us, there was a little bit more animosity amongst the players, because it was possible. I mean, there were some tournaments. I can remember one tournament that was so excited because they were going to give $500 first place, which was a huge amount.
Right.
There were only 3 women. So only the first place woman got a prize.
Right. So you'd come to town, the pro, and take the top prize, and then that would kind of rub everyone the wrong way. Yeah, I remember you talking about
potentially that. Could, yeah. And actually, because of that, I started. That's why I started making little disc golf quilts. I don't know if I've got them like. Yeah,
you're quilting. I think you posted there was a little quilt in the background of that JK AVR post, right?
This little guy right here. You know, I started making stuff like that, and I would donate one to every tournament, every big tournament, A tier and above, that I went to. And I would ask that it go to the woman who just placed out of the money. You know, tried a little bit of a consolation prize.
Right. A JK original.
And, you know, there's none of that now. There's enough money to go around that it sincerely feels like everybody is wanting everybody else to play their best and to do well. And that is a really healthy environment. And just strengthens the bond of the family in the division. And that is by far the most rewarding part of being out there.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned this on the Johnny Disc Golf podcast, shout out Corey, but just that idea of you had two of your largest caches last year, and then it's like Missy able to, break the earnings record and things like that is really great signs for the sport. And I think the NPO obviously is pushing that forward, and the FPO luckily is being respected enough, and the time and effort that goes into it and the opportunity is being reflected now, I think, more and more, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it feels like right now it's not just a slow rise. It feels like it's kind of punctuated big jumps here and there. And so it's just, quite frankly, very exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, it's an exciting community, and it's going to be an exciting tour this year. Really looking forward to being out on the road. Who again, getting back a little bit of this, we're going to have more European players this year. Like who's out there that you're excited to see or excited to play with in that regard?
I'm very excited to see the European players. From my experience in other disc sports, the Europeans just tend to seem to take it even that much more seriously. Although now with the amount of money that we've got going on, the Americans are very much
serious about it.
Yeah, I guess I'm still going back to the original days.
Sure.
And it always felt like the Europeans maybe just thought it was a little bit more legitimate from the angle that they were coming from. And I always respected that and enjoyed being in that environment. So I'm really excited to play with the Europeans. The young kids that are just coming out of the woodwork, like Stacey Haas, for example, is going to be on tour next year, and I played with her. I have mentioned this a number of times because it's just I just find it quite humorous. I played with her last year at the Clash of the Canyons, and she was 17 at the time. And after that, I was telling people that I was simply a rounding error from being 3 times her age. And it just is remarkable to me how many different people are experiencing this, and from what the different angles that we're coming at it, and all out there doing the same thing. So
that's great. Okay, so shifting back to, this has been a busy week. I should say happy belated birthday, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wednesday was the big day.
Yes.
Did you get your birthday round in? Or did you skip? Oh, yes, you're still coming back from disc golf, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I did not get a birthday round in. I hope to play Sunday, so that'll be my first round since November.
Wow. Okay, so that's gonna be a big round. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, so you don't do coffee, right?
I do not. I've actually never even tasted coffee. Wow. I do like matcha tea.
So it's the herbal teas. That's the beverage of choice.
Well, matcha is not herbal. There is caffeine in matcha.
Oh, right.
That's a green tea, but it's. I don't have a lot of vices. Right.
Well, just winning is your only vice, I think.
Yeah, that's not always a good one to need.
Yeah. Well, I do have this Frisbee here, which is the newest JK, the AVRX. It's designed, helped by Mark Morris here, part of Team OTB as well. They kind of played on your wispy wheel idea, added it to the original kind of concept for the AVR. Take me back, if you don't mind, to that process of Innova reaches out to you. How does the JK AVR come
First of all, I want to show you that I am taking part in Purple Friday.
Purple Friday. So, I wanted to make sure you remembered it was Purple Friday, but maybe you already knew.
Okay, so we're going back to approximately 2000 when Innova tells me that they're interested in me. And they invite me to Southern California to see the factory and to meet the guys. And I ended up accepting a job from them and I actually built their website. So the bones of their current website was something that I did decades ago.
So were you already in Southern California, or were you traveling from the Midwest for that interview?
Let's see, in 2000, well, I was still on the road. I didn't have a house at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess I would consider home Iowa back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have any roots in Southern California at the time.
Okay.
So I went out to the factory. I ended up accepting the job, and then Dave and I were walking around the factory, and he's putting discs in my hand, and you're going to throw this, and you're going to throw this, and you're going to throw this. And he put the AVR in my hand, and you're going to putt with this. And I felt it, and I said, no, I'm not. What do you mean? It's our best seller. It's just too slippery. It just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Takes it back, puts it on the shelf. And about a week later, I get a box of 5 or 6 white no stamps on the disc.
You went right to work.
They said JK test on them. Okay. And there was a note in them and said, throw these, see what you think. And I mean, I didn't even have to throw it. I picked it up and I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want. Mm-hmm. And they were beautifully gummy, and instantly knew that was what I wanted to putt with. And I even love it more for throwing. I absolutely love throwing the AVRX. But that's how it came about. They made it for me. And
yeah, I was interested. So they kind of hit it on that first batch, and you
did. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering if there was going to be like, they sent you 3 and they said, okay, feel this softness or gumminess and feel this texture. Nope. They just kind of.
I didn't even know that they were going to do that. I just, got that box and said, well, what do you think of these? And I like love with them instantly. Yeah.
Let's back it up a little bit farther. So back to Iowa. That's where you grew up. Who was the first person to put a disc or a Frisbee in your hand?
Jason Steffen. He was a friend of mine in college.
Okay.
And he had been playing since he was, I don't know when he started, but he turned pro already when he was in high school. And at the time when he was in college, he was arguably the best in the state, maybe second to Jeff Harper. Mm-hmm. And he was extraordinarily myopic, like many of us become when we become obsessed with the sport. And every story he told, every shirt he wore, everything had a disc golf theme. And I actually made fun of him one too many times, and he got sick of it. And we were in geology classes together, and we were out on a field trip somewhere, and he had his bag with him, and I was laughing at how many discs there were in his bag.
Right.
And
just probably like 7 discs at the time or something.
No, actually it was more than a dozen, but okay. Yeah, okay. It probably wasn't 20 or 30.
Right.
And he's like, okay, Korver, pick something out. And so I pointed at the middle evergreen tree in this grouping of 3 that was about 300 feet away, and he pulls out this red condor.
Okay.
And he takes a run up, and mid-flight I fell in love with the sport. Mid-flight I could see the deliberateness of the shot. I could see how accurate it was. I could see, just the fact that he could control that to, throughout the entire length of that shot. And I turned to him and I said, teach me how to play.
Wow.
And
so, did you have an athletic background?
Yeah. What
did you grow up playing? Yeah.
I grew up in a very small town. Rockford, Iowa is where I graduated, and our graduating class was 50, 60 students. So everybody has to do everything or you don't have a team. And I was already almost 6 feet tall by the time I was 13 years old.
Okay.
So yeah, I had 13 varsity letters in high school and did everything that was available, which was, I moved to that town my freshman year. So before I moved, I was in swimming, and then this little town didn't have a pool. So it was volleyball, softball, basketball, track. And then my freshman year in college, I went to a very small liberal arts school, Grinnell College in Iowa. And I played both softball and volleyball there. And then transferred at the time to be with a boyfriend my sophomore year to the University of Northern Iowa, and I didn't think that I was good enough to play sports, so I didn't try.
Right.
And by the time I was a senior in college, I didn't really know it, but I was desperately craving an athletic outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when disc golf sort of fell in my lap.
Wow. So again, kind of later in life, but obviously definitely the athletic background translated to that, and your appreciation of, as you see the environment, how do I attack it? What's my tool? How do I prepare for that?
I've always had pretty good spatial reasoning, and I love math. And so the angles and the 3D dimensions of a whole are very intriguing to me.
Right. What was your favorite course to play last year as you were back out on the big tour?
I think that the courses at the Green Mountain Championships in Vermont, both of them were unbelievably fun. I did not play well there, but those are the ones that I'm most looking
So one
forward
was Smugs and
Fox Run, Fox Meadow, and the ones at Smuggler's Notch, exactly.
Right.
Super pretty courses.
Definitely on the bucket list.
Oh yeah.
And what's your, this is maybe a simple question, but what's your preference? When's your ideal round? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it?
Unfortunately, it's morning. I would rather play morning because, it's harder in the morning in the winter because it's cold.
Right.
Better in the summer because it's not as hot. But for me, the harder thing to accommodate is when to eat and how much to eat. And I had that dialed in for morning rounds.
And then you shifted last year to the afternoon.
I don't have that dialed in for a 2:00 or 3:00 round. So I'm still learning how to do that with food.
Right.
So, but I mean, it is nice not having to set your alarm, and it is nice not having, if you do have anxiety before a tournament, often for me, that would result in not sleeping well. And if that happens now, big deal. I'll stay in bed until 10, 11 o'clock, because I don't have to get up and go. So there's a little bit of relief there, but still I would rather go. I'd rather get the round finished with by early afternoon. So then I've got the evening to do whatever. Whereas when the round is in the evening or late afternoon, I almost feel like I shouldn't be doing things in the morning because I might be tired
from what you're going to do later. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that following a lot of FPO last year and how that was interesting because you'd see the conditions completely shift from the morning to the afternoon in terms of wind and temperatures, like you're saying, and moisture and all that sort of thing. But yeah, just that kind of grind of having a whole day essentially. And then it's time to go to work. How do you wind down? How do you keep your calories kind of in the right places, right?
Yeah, and I didn't do a very good job with that last year. I'm gonna do better this year with the calories.
Right. We're going to improve.
I like to, you asked me if I was a morning person when we first started, and I don't necessarily think I am, but I really like to start the day off with accomplishing things. I like to make lists. I like to check things off the list. So I want to check things off the list, and I don't get that kind of satisfaction as much when we play afternoon rounds because of that feeling like I don't want to stress myself. Like if we play morning rounds, I would then probably spend the whole afternoon following the guys and watching them play. And, and logically, it's probably not that much different. When I come back the next day, I will have done the same amount of exercise, and it might affect me the same way, but it just feels like I shouldn't do that before I go out and play.
Well, right. It's a lot of walking, even if you are going to pick up things about the course or angles or other kind of advantages that way. All right. Well, I did get a couple questions from our beloved viewers and followers. Team OTB member Leah Sinigini wanted you to describe going through one of your world championship wins. So you can pick the world championship, but sort of describe, I know we'll get in a little bit of the time machine, but What was take us through one of them? What was maybe the one that stands out, or whatever? Well, your pick.
The very first one, my first pro PDJ World Championships in 1998 is by far the most cemented in my memory, and I had a good feeling going into that one that I could come out with a win. So I actually invited my mother and my grandmother to come to that event. So they were in Iowa, and the event was in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it was, not that far. And the second I invited them to come, I thought, oh boy, was that just the kiss of death to be so bold as to ask my family to be there at this event. So I was a little worried about that. But during the event, I actually have no memory of if I was ahead the whole time or if I wasn't, but I know that going into so World Championships for the new people out there, new meaning you haven't been in the sport for 10 years. The World Championships used to be a marathon, used to be a lot of rounds. And so it would be 6 to 8 rounds, and then you would cut to a semifinal, and then you would cut to a final 9. And so going into that final 9, it would just be the top 4 players. And going into that final 9, I had, I know I had the lead. I don't know if it was a handful or more, because I was trying not to think about the end at all. I was trying to focus right now, right here, right now. And even coming down to the very last hole, I think I might have had 8 strokes, so probably going to be okay with 1 hole left. But I still didn't allow myself to think past this next shot.
Right.
And the last hole was this, it wasn't very, very long, but you had to carry water basically the entire way. And so I played a somewhat conservative shot off to the side, and I don't even remember if I had to do an upshot or not, but I went up to putt when it was my turn, according to the disc. And I can still remember Annie Kreml giving me this look like, what are you doing? She would either call me corn-fed or skinny. She's like, what are you doing, skinny? And she pushed me out of the way. It's not your turn. And she had everybody else go first, and so that I had the last putt. And,
right.
That type of thing was not even, I wasn't comprehending that at the time. And so then
those kind of formalities, right?
Right. And so then I stood over my last putt, and I put it in. And the second I put it in, then the realization of what had happened washes over me, and I collapsed. I just dropped to the ground and instantly started crying. That was something that I had very specifically worked for 3 years. And one of the most rewarding moments of my life.
Wow. But still taking it shot by shot, and that's the way to stay focused. And I imagine it's still that way. And did it change? This is kind of a follow-up from Dave and Tracy. How did your mentality change between World Championship 1 and 5? I imagine it's still focusing on the shot at hand. Oh,
so actually 5, if we have time, I have a little story for 5 too.
Yeah. Just tell me when to stop too. I have one more question after this,
okay.
But I know we can wrap up.
Okay. So by 5, I no longer had this massive amount of confidence. After I had been on top for a while, then people start rooting for the underdog, which is not you. And it was hard for me not to take that personally. And so the whole emotions around sports psychology, probably something that I should have maybe spent more time working on. So by this time, I have a completely different mindset. And this time going into the semifinal round, I was behind by, I think, more than 5 strokes. And the reason I remember this is because my mother was along for this. And by the way, just to visualize it, my mother's like 5 feet tall, cute as a bug, and just a spark plug. And she knows that she's not supposed to talk about like my position with me when I'm playing, because I don't, I know what I need to know. I know what I want to know. If I don't know it, I'll go find it out. And I don't want her to ask me.
You don't need the information volunteered necessarily. Right. Yeah.
So she knew what she was allowed to do and what she wasn't. And so she actually had in her hands in her pockets the number of strokes difference between me, and it was Des who was in the lead at that time. So, let's say it was 6 strokes. So she had the five fingers on one hand and one on the other, and she had them in her pocket. And then whenever the score would change, she would change. So, okay, now she's only 5 behind, and
okay,
that type of thing. And we were playing in Flagstaff, Arizona, and it was a very wooded course. And that morning I just had a really good line, and I started to play better than I had all week. And I started to pick up strokes, and Des lost her line a little bit and started to hit the woods, and you could see that she was getting stressed, and the lead changed. I picked up, I think I might've picked up about 8 strokes on that one round. And at one point, I don't know if it was during the round, or I think it was during the round, it might've been after the round, my mother was so excited. She comes up to me, she's like, left hand good, which meant
right. So how do I show like the negative number now?
She had erased all of the bad ones, and now she was counting up. And so
yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. So that's my favorite memory of my 5th title. And I was able to go on and hang on to that lead that I gained in the semifinals and the finals. And it came down to the last hole. I think it was only a stroke or 2 difference, but I did. And that one was kind of a surprise, because I was already, like I said, my confidence was already waning. And so I was going in hoping to do well, but not expecting the wind.
And then Gloria once again at the end. All right, we'll wrap it up with one more question. We talked about making lists. So what's on your list of goals for 2022?
Well, I am big on making lists. I'm not always big on sharing what the goals are.
Okay. So
I want to play better. I want to play better than I did last year.
Right.
But I know that that's going to be harder to do, because there's going to be more women, better competition. Other women are improving, and I'm not sure how much I can continue to improve, although I can, I don't think that I played at my best last year. So if I can just get up to what I'm capable of, then I think that will be able to reasonably place me among the current women. But most importantly, I want to have grace with wherever I end up. I want to be okay with whatever wherever my score puts me, whether that's a good round or a bad round. And I think that's a harder lesson for me than to go outside and practice and work on the skills. And I think that's a better life lesson.
More self-care and more mental health in 2022.
Yes.
Sounds like good goals for everyone. So thank you for joining us, Juliana. Really nice speaking with you today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And enjoy the rest of your Purple Friday. Thanks again for repping. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with more of these morning round interviews all season long. And thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye, Juliana.
Bye.
Cool. We did it.
Yay.
All right. Well, hope that didn't drag on too long.
No, that was fine. Actually, went quite fast. It felt like it went fast.
Yeah, no, it did. And I saw your caddy making moves. I was like, oh no. Cool. Well, that was really fun. And that's some big news about your hand. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on the road to recovery.
I am too. I was super scared about that for a while, but I did try to do some upshots yesterday and not quite ready for that. So I'm
Putting
hoping
was
that I
okay,
can.
but the added torque.
It was a little bit jarring. Yeah.
That's
And-
outside of the hand. Where's that one? Yeah.
Yeah, right below the pinky.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be painful. All right. Well, like I said, good luck. Have fun on Sunday if you do get to throw. Don't push it now.
No, yeah, I'll probably be putting. I'll definitely be putting right-handed, but I'm not sure how much of the other shots will be left-handed versus right-handed.
Yeah.
We'll try the right. We'll see how it goes.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll stay in touch. And again, have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.